And we're live. Hello, this is Mario Serafero, Editor-in-Chief at xda-developers.com, Flashaholic in recovery, and I'd like to welcome you to the second XDA Android podcast. Our goal is to discuss the latest in Android tech news from an enthusiast perspective, and I'm joined today by Redditors and editors from XDA.
Hi, my name is Anthony Artizone, and I am an AMA coordinator on the Android subreddit.
And I'm Corey Fiak. I also come from the Android subreddit, and I'm an Android developer.
Daniel Marchetta. I'm from the Android subreddit and an Android enthusiast.
And I'm Mathew Brock, and I'm the voice behind XDA's social media.
Alright, so let's get to it. Well, we're just after Google Christmas. We've got a bunch of new gifts. We got the Nexus 5X, the Nexus 6P. Turns out that pretty much everything that we saw in leaks actually came true. We also got a new Pixel tablet, which is the first, and also new Chromecast goodies. So let's start with the Nexus 5X. I want to hear your opinion on this, guys, because there's been a hype roller coaster on Reddit, XDA, and pretty much every Android community. And, you know, hype was off the charts, and then it came down. The leaks just made it all worse. What do you guys think about the Nexus 5X?
It's tough because we have to evaluate it on its own. I know personally as an enthusiast, the 6P is a little more interesting to me, but we have to kind of keep that out of our minds and concentrate on the 5X. One of the things with both the phones, I noticed, especially with the 5X, the camera bump on it is actually much less than people were originally thinking when we saw those initial leaks. So that's nice to see.
Yeah, I was really surprised by just how not protruding it was on both devices, actually. I think that the leaks, the images, the lighting, whatever, they just really exaggerated, especially on the Nexus 6P. It turns out that it doesn't actually protrude nearly as much as we were expecting. It actually makes for quite an attractive device. I really like that they chamfered pretty much everything about the edges, and it looks really shiny and really premium. I mean, it does give the P, it does really make it stand on its own.
For the price difference, though, in the 5X, you can see they definitely cut cost with the polycarbonate body, and it loses out on a lot of features that the 5P has, especially a lot of power user features. I think that if the 5X was in a bubble and it didn't have the Moto X Pure, right there in that price range, I think that it would be a much more attractive package than what a lot of people are finding it to be right now.
Yeah, definitely. I do think that there were some corners cut. Obviously, there was just a Reddit AMA where they were discussing, they were trying to balance the premium aspect and the affordability. I do think that they did a much better job with the Nexus 6P than they did with the 5X, which leads me to prices. Mathew, you are from the UK. What do you think about the prices?
We have value-added tax in the UK, which is 20%. Which means by the time you're getting to the largest storage capacity of the 6P, you're looking at just a few dollars short of $900. I won't be picking one up.
Yeah, definitely. I did not like the pricing of the Nexus 5X, which obviously we'll take a look at the bang per buck. But just on a preliminary look, it's more expensive than the Nexus 5, really. Especially, it's a little disappointing to see the RAM and the storage. And I pre-ordered mine. I'm not particularly happy with the bang per buck I'm getting. The specification sheets do not really stand out. I still don't doubt that we're going to get a comprehensive package. I think that Corey, you have a Galaxy S6, which is in the same screen range as the Nexus 5X. Do you think that the S6 is comparable in terms of bang per buck when you actually consider everything?
Well, I mean, S6 is almost in a whole nother category. It's a flagship phone, and it's got prices to match that. So I think it's aimed at a different consumer. I think the S6 is aimed for someone who wants like the very top features and is willing to pay top dollar for it. These Nexus line phones are definitely much better value per dollar when you compare the specs between the two.
I think, too, building on that point, the Nexus phones were always aimed towards developers, and then we saw last year we saw the Nexus 6, and it was out of the price range of a lot of people who just wanted to develop on the device. So That could be a reason why they brought the 5X back, is to just cater towards that developer market who needs a cheaper device just to develop on. They don't need the fantastically great camera. They don't need the more RAM than you can do anything with. So maybe that was the reason for the 5X and for its pricing and for its specs.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Because as a consumer who's coming from a Nexus 6, I pre-ordered the 6P earlier today, and I wouldn't want to go from a Nexus 6 to a 5X. I think, with the exception of the camera, everything else is a downgrade. Especially since I have the 64 GB model. But in most cases, the 6P looks like an upgrade. You're losing out on wireless charging and OIS, but otherwise, you're getting more bang for your buck because it's cheaper. I ended up paying like $700 for the Nexus 6 64 gig. I got the 64 gig 6P, and it was like $500 something with tax. So can't complain.
All right, we had a slight technical difficulty, but we're back. We were discussing the Nexus 5X prices and everything that had to do with them. The prices obviously vary a lot region by region, slightly disfavoring certain regions. I don't have too much of a problem here in the US. I did get it for $420 something after taxes and everything. It's pre-ordered, coming October 20 something. None of you guys actually bought the devices, right?
Like I said, I pre-ordered the 6P, so no to the 5X.
You know what I think the amazing thing is that the store never went down. They're actually all still available for pre-order, and it's not, a whole bunch of zero inventory, check back later. I don't know whether or not that's a thing, maybe diminishing demand, or if it's actually that Google finally fixed their store and they can have something that'll stay up through the constant push. So I think when we start to see devices getting shipped out, we might get a good idea on how many devices were actually ordered during that time. I even heard the Chromecasts are actually being delivered at some people's houses already, which is just insane.
Yeah, I had my shipping delivery. Mine's been shipped already, but it hasn't arrived.
Yeah, they definitely did improve the experience this year after the catastrophes that were previous years. It does feel pretty satisfactory to have it all play out so smoothly. I did get it just 10 minutes maybe after they announced it, and it went through very smoothly. I had no issues, so I should be expecting my device soon. But like I said, I'm not particularly happy with the bang per buck. Obviously, you get the Snapdragon 808, 1080p screen, 2 GB of RAM, 16 or 32 GB of storage. I got the 32 GB version. It's got a pretty good camera, allegedly, but I'm still not quite satisfied. I feel that the average price of smartphone flagships has dropped, and the price of this Nexus has gone up, but the specifications have not fully gone up accordingly. Now, maybe they did make this try to make this be a developer device, but then again, you look at previous Nexus, and now they're even cheaper. You look at the Nexus 6, and it's going for sales all the time.
Yeah, and when you're looking at pricing, you have to compare it with the competition. So the S6 isn't really in the same price range, but I think more reasonable competitors there would be the the Nexus, the Moto X Pure would probably be the biggest competitor. OnePlus 2 also in the same price range. Arguably, probably not as good of an option, but I think a lot of people are really in the spot of choosing between that Moto X Pure and the new Nexus 5X.
Yeah, I think that the Moto X style, Moto X Pure, however you want to call it, depending on your region, really is shaking things up in this space. Motorola really upped its game in terms of getting the price per the bang per buck ratio to perfection. Really, I mean, it does beat the OnePlus 2 in terms of bang per buck. It does beat pretty much everything else out there, bar certain Chinese manufacturers, but you don't get that security that you get with Motorola of quality software. Support, well, they're improving. I gotta say, if the latest stories are to be believed, but Motorola is really shaking things up, which takes me to the more premium Nexus, the Nexus 6P. Now, I really like this device. I think that they did a much better job balancing the bang per buck. What do you think, Mathew? Because you were about to buy one of those.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Not at the prices in the UK. It's really, really put it straight out of my range for a reasonable phone. I'd have to get the 128 gig because anything less is unacceptable, and it just short of $900. I can't justify it. I mean, it's a great developer device, but there's no way I'm paying $879, I think it is, for a Nexus phone. It's just not, no.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like I mentioned, I spent like $580 something for the 64 gig. I have a friend in the UK who bought the exact same model, and he spent $755 US equivalent. So that's insane.
Now, Matt, is this the same change that the difference you're seeing between the iPhones, or is it like they're increasing the price even higher on the Nexus devices?
I'm not sure. We might have lost him.
Yeah, I think we might have lost him.
Yeah. Oh well, we lost him. Going back to the next. Oh, there we go. Or I guess not.
Yeah,
Anyway,
Yeah, he's dead.
yeah, he's in limbo right now. He's in Hangouts limbo. Going back to the Nexus 6P, I'm really happy with the DxO Mark score that it got. Oh my God, who would have thought that the Nexus line would make such a huge leap forward in terms of camera? Now, if you look at the Nexus 6, that camera has a very good sensor as is. It was mostly a problem with the software. So this also makes me excited about the new software that Google is packing with Marshmallow and just really Android in general. I think that's going to be really exciting, and I think that's a good part of the story. Obviously, the sensor's good too, but
here's my question though: are any of those changes going to be making their way to the Nexus 6 or Nexus 5? Because they talked a lot about the announcement about the new camera and the new camera software and the features, and I know a lot of the features aren't going to be able to make it, but are they going to be pushing some of the improvements, like the ability to just work better as an app and not suck like the Google camera kind of does now?
Yeah.
Did they mention if that's making its way?
From what I heard, like obviously the update to the Google camera app is just going to be like, I think as long as you're on Marshmallow, you can get it, you can install it. But I think like Smart Burst and the 240 frame per second slow mo or whatever. I think that's only going to be on the 6P, and it won't be on any other device.
Yeah, and then they're blaming that on the processor decision. The 810 and the 6P is well, it's more powerful. I mean, it has a higher theoretical peak. We all know about the 810. We don't know how it's going to perform here. I mean, if someone can tweak the software to make that processor shine, I think it's Google. But yeah, it's just a matter of the processors, from what I gather.
Right, and the other thing that we're thinking is because of the processors would be the image stabilization. So one of the things is I think neither phone has any optical image stabilization. The 6P does have some digital stabilization to it, but the 5X lacks any image stabilization whatsoever.
Yeah, and to me that's a major downer in my opinion, because I mean you need some sort of stabilization. It'll be interesting to see. They specifically said electronic stabilization, so I wonder if they consider digital stabilization to be something different, and that's why they said electronic. I don't know the nuances there in the camera sensors, but it is kind of disappointing if they took any kind of stabilization out of there, because for video it would practically be unusable in my opinion.
Well, the DOX Mark article that talked about the 6P did mention that one of the cons was the jello effect from the stabilization on video, and I believe it was the S6 had the exact same problem, where the video stabilization was resulting in some kind of jello effect. So it basically implies that there is some stabilization in the 6P.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, the jello effect. I never liked the jello effect when there's video stabilization, to be honest. There's one last thing that I want to touch on the Nexus, and it's just the fact that it didn't feel like an exciting event. You have Nexus Christmas, or the Nex-mas, I guess, but this one just didn't feel that exciting. Obviously, we have all those leaks just the week before leading up to the release, all the stories, all that stuff. And it was just a hype roller coaster. It has OIS. No, it doesn't. It has this. No, it doesn't. It has this. But we knew all about the design. We knew the main specifications to a T. And we knew the prices as well. So, when the event came, it was just like they were going through the bullet point list. And it just didn't feel as magical as some other device releases. I know putting it that way is a little geeky, but...
There
It
were
could
quite
also.
there were quite a few things that from the event though that I thought were brilliant. I mean, first they announced that the was brilliant, and the Chromecasts. I really like the Chromecast audio, and there's one on the way already. Both some brilliant things, and the new Pixel looks exceptional.
I agree with you 100% about the Chromecast. I am really excited. I'm not going to order them from the Google Store because I don't want to pay tax, and I think are they still charging shipping for packages unless you choose if you choose standard. But I'm going to go through Best Buy and pick up probably both of them in black. The main advantage for me with the audio one is that's going to be great for my car. I don't have Bluetooth audio in my car, but I have an auxiliary input. And I'm going to try putting that in the vehicle and wiring it up with the USB port and see if I can't get some kind of a Bluetooth alternative. And that's the most interesting part of it for me. And the new Chromecast with the new features like the fast play and stuff like that, I use my Chromecast every single day. So I'm really excited to get some kind of an upgrade, and hopefully stability upgrade comes with it a little bit too.
There's something that I want to ask you guys about the Chromecast. How do you feel about the Chromecast still obviously not being integrated with Android TV? I know that a lot of people wanted the Chromecast to be more like Android TV. I personally think it's better to just be the standalone thing because it offers people just what they want and nothing else, right?
Exactly. I have the Nexus player, and the Nexus player has all the same Chromecast features built into it. It's not a terrible device, but it's not a great device either. And I think the advantage of the Chromecast is it's lightweight. Anybody can use it. Anybody can plug it in. It's stupid easy to use. You don't have to worry about a remote. Almost everybody has some kind of a smart device. The advantages of the Chromecast over something running Android TV and trying to do too many things, I think it outweighs the bad. Google's notorious for just trying to throw everything they can at a product and seeing what works and what doesn't, and a lot of people make fun of it for it's forever a beta product. But the Chromecast, I think, with them having so few features and it just being what it is, I think that it's a real advantage to the Chromecast to just keep it simple and it works.
Yeah, and I think what they're doing here is they're trying to do one thing and they're trying to do it well, and they're doing a pretty good job at it. They're almost doing it to an extreme, though. I'm a little disappointed that you have to have two different devices, one for the Chromecast, one for the Chromecast audio. It seems a little strange, especially since they look pretty much identical to each other, save a little design difference with the audio. So that's one thing I'm not excited about. I'd like to have one device with multiple outputs that I could use whichever way I wanted to use it. To be fair, though, you're probably going to pick, okay, I'm going to use this to either do audio or I'm going to use this for video. So it's probably not that big of an issue, but it would have been nice to see them be a little more flexible with that.
I agree.
I think it's also important to point out that a lot of people who have like those stereo speaker systems, a lot of them, they're hooked up to a TV. So there's going to be a lot of people who can pick up a regular Chromecast and it's not going to be, they won't need the audio. But I agree with Corey. I don't know why they had to do two devices. Hopefully, if there's ever a third generation Chromecast, it's all built into one again, like the original was. But just having to spend another $35 on a device that might not have been necessary is a little bit of a bummer.
Yeah, there's one thing that we didn't cover with the Nexus that is not really that big of a deal for most people. It's the Nexus Protect. I think that this is quite it's quite a good option to have for any phone, really, to have this kind of a OEM insurance. I want a few words on that because I didn't purchase it. I didn't know that you couldn't get it after the order or just after placing the order. I just wanted to know a little more about it before placing it. But what do you guys think? Do you guys love those kind of do you love it or hate it?
I believe firmly that you cannot get it in the UK. So have fun.
I think for U.S. customers, it's actually a really huge deal. AppleCare just went up in price with the next generation devices, and even with taking AppleCare out of the equation, the only real alternative was either going through your carrier, which isn't an option with Nexus devices for most carriers, or going through SquareTrade. And the price of this package undercut SquareTrade's deal by I think $10 on the package for the P and like $20 or $30 for the 5X. So I think anybody who's purchasing it and is teetering on the edge of getting some kind of protection package, I think it's a no-brainer to just pick it up because it's really cheap. It looks like it's going to be really easy. Everybody's had really good fortune with replacing Nexus 5s through the Google Store. So, in my opinion, I think it's a really, really great product.
I think it's a great product. I'll agree. I pre-ordered the 6P. I didn't get it because I wouldn't get a protection plan. Period. Just because I don't know how long I'm going to keep my phone for. I usually keep them for 2 years, but I've only had my Nexus 6 for 1 year and I'm upgrading, so who knows. But I'll agree, it's a breakthrough. $89 for an extra year, and it includes accidental.
Yep.
And I work in retail, so I know about Square Trade, and if this undercuts Square Trade's prices, then you know it's a good deal. Just plain and simple.
Yeah, I think that what turns people off is just the fact that you have to pay extra for it, and people just want to get those storage upgrades. I was reading a lot about in the forums that people just realized, oh, you have to pay this much in deductible, therefore I'm just gonna cancel my order, get it again, and just get more storage. And which leads me to the last thing I want to touch on these phones, which is paying more for storage. I think that Google's doing a better deal, at least slightly better deal than other companies in terms of paying more for the same amount of storage. They're not doing the Motorola approach to get 1 extra gigabyte of RAM with the storage increment, which would be great with Nexus 5X. I mean, seriously, it would be. I know that, Map, you feel very strongly about this, don't you?
Yes, I do. I've been looking at the new Elophones that are coming out this year, and I've noticed that with their new flagship, the Voni.
All right, well, that was unexpected. We're having many technical difficulties with Map over there. Well, it was sad. I was feeling good rant over there, but I know how he feels. You know, we're having a time where we are losing SD cards in many devices. Some devices are using it. You know, before it was a standard, now it's a selling point, and that's kind of what bothers me. That some OEMs are actually using it to lure people that want to have it, but in general, most people seem to be dropping it. And you know, there's some devices that have ludicrous storage. There's that Zenfone 2 that has ludicrous storage, new version, but 128 gigs is still not a valid option for most people. You know, there's still more limits on data. There's more data caps. Unlimited is gonna be a thing of the past really soon. What are we gonna do without having more storage for people that don't want to pay for insane data plans, for people that don't want to pay for that insanely priced storage versions? Why are they not using that much, that extra price? Why are they not putting in other specs? Maybe a screen resolution bump, maybe RAM bump. What is going on? Why so expensive for just getting something that we used to get in the first place, or something that we should be getting now? It obviously hasn't caught up with the times. What do you think about this, Corey, as a developer? How does this affect you? Because some OEMs argue that it's more of a problem for developers. That's OnePlus's argument against micro SD.
Yeah, I mean, one thing with if you offer different hardware and different storage sizes of the phone, it gets a little tricky because the whole phone is designed as one package. They've handpicked the processor. They've determined how much RAM they need. They've determined X, Y, and Z. And if you start getting different configurations just for a different amount of storage, you could introduce different situations where maybe an app is performing one way under a certain configuration, but another way under a different configuration. It's nothing developers aren't used to, though. I mean, Android is a very diverse market out there. There's tons of different devices. So really, I think it's not that big of a deal from a development standpoint. And quite frankly, I think it'd be nice to be able to see a little bit of a spec bump at those other levels.
I think it's interesting, though. I guess this is going back to the Nexus device in a way, but with Marshmallow's new SD card, the way it works with SD cards now, where you can internalize the card, so like you can never use another phone again, but you can add storage potentially for cheaper. I think that was definitely targeted toward developers, given what OnePlus said about how SD cards for developers. So I don't know. I think hopefully with Marshmallow you'll see more OEMs go back to SD cards. I think there was a rumor that the next Galaxy might have an SD card again. So OEMs might go back to it after, not with just the Marshmallow update, but seeing that people are still want them.
Yeah.
Go ahead if you had something to say.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, people are giving flack to Samsung over this, but we still don't know if their decision to abandon microSD was just mostly a matter of their UFS storage 2.0 not being compatible with microSD. That's what some reports say. I still haven't seen quite a credible source for it, but as far as we know, there could be some incompatibilities there. Maybe they just needed extra time to incorporate it. I don't think Samsung would have wanted to really truly walk away from it, if forever at least.
One other thing to keep in mind, though, the OEMs can get away with it. People are buying bigger storage options. They're buying bigger versions of the Moto X or the Galaxy S6 or the Nexus phones. And we hear day after day about Apple taking all the profits in the smartphone market, and a lot of that comes from storage options. It came out today. It's only like $17 difference between 64 and 16 gigabytes. So if that's where their profits are, then I think the OEMs are going to continue doing it because that's where they can make a good chunk of change on these phones.
One other thing I wanted to mention regarding the event, it seemed to be very hardware focused. They weren't talking much about Android M really at all. From the development side, one of the biggest changes with Android M, I think, was the security permissions model, and it's something they didn't really touch on much, but that's probably one of the biggest things I'm looking forward to in M. But really, much of the other changes aren't. They're very they're under the hood, so to speak. There's nothing. And that's why we probably didn't hear much about it at the event this week.
Yeah, I definitely feel that Android has matured to the point where we're not going to see revolutionary changes for a while. At the same time, Google is focusing so many of its resources on so many different things. You got Android Auto, Android Wear, Android TV, Android, you got Brillo, you got all these things. It's clear that Google is trying to expand horizontally rather than vertically with Android at this point. But that leads me on to something that's not Android, and that's their Google Pixel C. You know what? It's not running Chrome OS. We know that. Yeah, that was a job. But I think that it running Marshmallow at this point in Android's life is not so bad. Android has gotten more productive over the years, especially the past year. Google Docs, Google Drive, all of that has improved dramatically. Android for work, the add-on keyboard looks great. The hardware looks great. And as a student and as someone who works on the go, and I carry my mobile office with me all the time, I think that's a great product. And I'm honestly eager to try it out. What do you guys think about it? The X1 processor in it as well. That's crazy. What do you guys think about it?
I agree with you. And one thing to keep in mind, in the early developer previews for Marshmallow, we did see this split screen, and then it vanished. So I wouldn't put it past Google to be preparing another either a dot upgrade or a .0 upgrade to Marshmallow that will include this feature when the Pixel ships, because having that with the screen ratio that they were talking about, with two apps on the screen at one time, it seems like it's a fit. So it would make sense for Google to maybe push that. And I agree with you though. Marshmallow is light years ahead of KitKat and even Lollipop for that matter for what you can do on it, and especially with USB-C, you've got host charging abilities. You can pair pretty much anything to it and plug it in. So I think Android is at a point where it's a compelling option to finally move back towards tablets.
And let's talk about how awesome the hardware was on that. The magnetic design was really cool, and I got a little scared when he starts shaking it by the upside down by the keyboard.
I know. It was insane. Like that's a strong magnet. How does it work? Seriously.
I was gonna say also the fact that you basically never have to charge the keyboard. Like
That's awesome.
the tablet like basically like charges the keyboard when it's closed. That's
Yeah.
Yeah.
impressive.
Yeah, the hardware and the X1 processor. I mean, what else? If you need a powerful productivity Android device, what else do you need? I mean, the X1. Now, I haven't seen consistent numbers on the battery capacity. There was one specification sheet by a notable publication that said it was 2,700 milliamp hours. That just seemed really low to me.
Yeah.
I'm not very sure. So there was conflicting numbers over there. But even then, the processor is a beast. Let's hope it doesn't get hot nor drain too much battery, because after all, it's a small body comparison to some of the other products that the X1 was designed for. But the high resolution screen, all it needs is a pencil, and then there you go. You got your iPod killer.
You know what I thought was impressive with it is it felt more like a true Nexus device to me than either of the two phones did. It was showing what Android's capable of and what Google's capable of when they really care about hardware. I mean, the inductive charging keyboard, like Anthony mentioned, and the 4 microphones. So it seems to be on par with Alexa from Amazon. They're really showing what Android's capable of with this tablet. So I'm really eager to see where this thing goes.
Yeah.
I
It
was
feels
just
like
gonna
they're
say,
competing with other tablets too.
I was just gonna say it's important to point out for some people might not know that Pixel is not created by an OEM. Pixel is Google manufacturing the actual device. And I mean, bringing Pixel into the tablet category, where it was previously just a Chromebook, gives me hope for maybe even seeing Pixel on a smaller screen, like in a phone or something.
Absolutely.
Obviously, we have the Nexus line, but we've never seen a true Google phone. And we could maybe in the future see a Pixel phone, and this just opens up the Pixel game, which, if you love Google, it's not Nexus you're looking at, it's Pixel you're looking at.
Right. I mean, that's like the highest degree of vertical integration that Google could aim for with their own phone, their own whatever. But yeah, it's just the Pixel tablet. A lot of people are still gonna give it a flack for not being Chrome OS, for this or that. But even then, like you said, it's a Google-made thing. It competes with Microsoft's made thing. It competes with Apple's made thing. That they both happen to be tablets. They both happen to be very, very good. They both happen to sell competitively, and they both happen to run on these very popular operating systems that they have. So, I think that this is a way for Android to break into that segment. Not just Chrome OS, not just Google, not just another OEM, but Google's Android to break into that as pure as Google can make it. And AOSP does have a stylus support. You can actually do more things with it it supports mice as well, mice keyboard, it supports all that. So the sky's the limit with this device, I feel. And if it gets proper developer support, I think that the price point might deter from that. But if it does get proper developer support, then man, I'm gonna buy that just in a second. Yeah, I think that there's really nothing else to say about this. It's just a great, it's great hardware. The software, again, it's a tablet, and it's Android on a tablet. It's not the best thing, but who knows? We maybe with this will bring some real attention to Google on tablet, Android on tablets. And one last thing is HTC, their A9 and.
Wait, who?
How do you spell that? Could you spell that for me?
Literally who? Yeah. God. HTC. Oh my God. Just the leaks of the A9. There was a point where I was kind of wary with kind of like skeptical of big leaks like this, but just HTC devices have been leaked back and forth in the past year. And I mean, we even had a 15-year-old bring down the entire MA launch last year, and that was the most hilarious event in my Android life. Like, it was just the best. But anyway, these devices look so I want to hear your opinion first because you guys might actually like it. I don't know. What do you think about it, Daniel?
It's sad. I think that's the only thing that can really be said about it. It's sad. It's I think HTC is struggling to do anything to try and get notoriety. And if this A9 leak is what we're going to end up seeing at that at the end of October event or whatever it's coming up, that VR thing or whatever they're trying to do, if that's what we're going to be seeing, it's really HTC's latch-just effort to copy an iPhone and say, hey, try our phone and we'll see what happens, because it's like they gave up. It's really like they gave up. They seem to have lost motivation, steam, just everything that was behind them to try and be the underdog story is just gone at this point. And LG took their spot. In the Android marketplace, in my opinion, they kind of filled that spot really well. And it's sad to see HTC go the way they did. They had some really great devices, but unless they pull out a super shocker surprise, I think it's going to be a real sad day.
Then we're going to start placing bets on which company buys them.
Oh,
My money's on Asus. I don't know
well,
why.
I don't think anybody's going to buy them at this point. I mean, Asus is doing a great job with their Zen phones. I mean, everybody is doing. I mean, nobody's making money, but everybody's doing a pretty good job with their phones. I don't know who has to buy HTC at this point.
yeah, I'm not sure who would actually want to buy HTC because you look at their lead designer is gone, their CEO was changed. The team's changing internally because of the blunders that they've been having, and up until the M9, they made legitimately good flagships, but they were flawed, and all they had to do was learn from those flaws and listen to the people and what they want. I mean, I honestly think that people at XDA or people at Android could design a better phone than HTC at this point, because everything that HTC needs to do, the checklists are all over forums. What people want, they just need to listen and not just throw. I mean, they came up with this HTC M9 better camera edition. Honestly, nobody M9 Plus, like nobody wanted the M9. Nobody wanted the M9 Plus. What's gonna make you think that they're gonna want an M9 Plus camera Aurora edition or whatever?
But Mario, it has 1 more megapixel and laser autofocus. Everybody's doing it now. They have to.
Damn! I did not know that. I glanced over the specification sheet and I thought it was literally the same. 1 more mega. Oh my god! No, but come on, let's be real here.
It's sad.
And another important thing, the things that HTC has excelled at with those M phones, especially the speakers, front-firing stereo speakers, boom. There's other manufacturers that are now taking that, adding that to their line. Look at the 6P. You've got the exact same thing on that. 5X does only have 1 speaker, but again, it's front-firing. And so their secret sauce is getting...
Yeah, Moto Xperia, I heard, is amazing.
Xperia too.
Yeah.
And the A9 is dropping the front-firing speakers altogether. It's got a single unit up top from the leak. So unless they do something with that home button, I don't think we'll be seeing boom sound anymore either.
But hey, they dropped the black bar.
Now it's white.
Oh wait, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like they didn't even get that fixed. People didn't like the black bar because it was black. They didn't like it because it took up so much space. So all they did was just change it, and it has the same logo over there, which now it looks even more awkward because it's just floating right there, taking up space with nothing to the sides, no contrast, no anything. Yeah, it's just really, really bad, and it just makes me want to grab their designer by the neck and show them, see these EV leaks. Renders from like 8-9 months ago. Copy that. Just do that.
I was gonna say I have a question. Is HTC the only OEM that puts their name on their phones twice?
No,
Samsung
does that. Samsung does that.
Okay.
You can find here and here.
Back.
Yeah.
Doesn't LG do it as well? And I think Sony does too, don't they?
Yeah, I think it's silly. I do prefer like minimal branding, especially if it's not worse. I actually do think that HTC OnePlus does a great job. This is a black slab on the front, and they just got this, which is also a very minimal logo. I actually do like that. I really appreciate it, and I think that they actually said something about that in their presentation when they're announcing the phone, that they didn't want just plaster with logos and all that. I mean, HTC even they even put like the a Beats by Dre thingy on the back of the M7, something like that. You know, like
Yeah, the
that
bottom.
red thing. Yeah, like what's like honestly, that just completely kills the aesthetic of an otherwise perfect phone, and that's what always has been my problem with HTC phones. They have this beautiful aesthetic, but they ruin it with these little details that either make functionality bad or they just break the design flow. You know, you had the power buttons, you had the M9. Um, I just
Just
can't.
you know,
You
take
know,
it back to the M7. You know, I mean, the M7 I think will always be remembered in the Android community. It's the phone that turned the tide. You know, before that we had these cheap plastic pieces of crap, and
right.
from the M7 forward, you can see a definite shift. It's almost as big as the shift in smartphones when the first iPhone came out. You know, there was a shift in Android phones when that thing came out, and it made waves. You know, it had its flaws. It completely broke the Android design style with its capacitive buttons, with only having a home and back button and no recents. And
Yeah.
the rear camera was flawed, but it was
But
a great phone.
yeah.
You know, it
Yeah.
looked good. It worked well.
It was good. It was a good phone. It looked and like you said, now everyone's using metal
Yep.
somewhere. You know, if you want to sell your phone and if you don't want reviewers to tell them, oh, it feels cheaper or whatever, you have to put metal accents, metal edges, whatever, some metal somewhere. Um, and that's HTC did bring up the Android design game up to the iPhone. I don't want to make those silly comparisons, but it's true. It did bring up the design game up to the design build quality and materials that the iPhone had. No,
It
it's
made
funny because the iPhone is actually copying HTC. I
Mhm.
mean, the iPhone 6 looks more like the M8 than Android phones do look like the iPhone if you exclude China.
Yeah, it made OEMs care, I think. You know, before that they just didn't care about hardware design. It was all about throwing the biggest, baddest specs and whatever gimmicky features they could put in there. And, you know, it showed consumers wanted a nice looking device, and, you know, it made them care. That's pretty much all I can say.
Yeah, it did make them care. But now, I mean, just what are you gonna do? HTC, what are you doing? You know what's that's what you said. Like whatever they're doing, I don't think they know what they're doing. If they're hyping up this launch as well, hyping up the launch as something special, saying that the launch itself is not going to be ordinary. I think that they shouldn't also hype up the launch. You know, I feel like the OnePlus hyped up their launch because they knew that they were under delivering in terms of hardware and they needed to pretty it up. And it ended up being boring. I did not like the OnePlus launch. It was just too long and oh god. Anyway, I'm sorry for the rant, but Jesus, what are you doing, HTC? I want to buy your phones, but just do them right. Ugh.
Yeah, it's frustrating. We'll see what happens at this event. I mean, they're promising something out of the ordinary. I sure hope so, because ordinary for HTC has not been turning out very good.
Yep.
But yeah, with that, I think that's going to be all the topics that we want to cover this week. Just a quick opportunity for everyone to plug themselves. I'm Corey Fiac, and once again, you can find me at CodismsDev on Twitter and Codisms on the Google Play Store.
Again, I'm Anthony, AMA coordinator on the Android subreddit. You can find me on Reddit and on Twitter at my handle, Anthony V. Artis.
I'm Daniel Marchena. You can find me pretty much anywhere at the handle Ultimax98 or on YouTube at Daniel Marchena.
And I'm Mario Serafero. You can find me at xda-developers.com. I usually write a few articles every week, and if not, I'm just editing behind the scenes. You can also find me on Reddit. You can find me on Twitter. My handle is Tuckingun, and I'll see you next time.